For Mary, on reading the opening of Max Ferber from Sebald's The Emmigrants, an autobiographical fragment. Moving as I did to Manchester in the autumn of 1989, my purpose semi-consciously to escape from what I, at that time at least, perceived as my failure in not completing my social work course, and to rebuild myself with an extreme need to prove myself by coping in a new and strange city, Manchester. Being already semi-pervaded by a physical condition which had been ascribed to, quote, anxiety, and physically and mentally exhausted, which naturally engenders a feeling of malaise, I wandered the streets of Manchester, my self-esteem so low and knocked that I at times almost believed that I was some kind of tramp or down and out, as I willed myself on to walk around the Piccadilly Plaza as described in the start of Max Ferber, a 1970s monstrosity of a building. Though thinking about it, it must be 1960s, as it's in the narrative of 1966 in Max Ferber, and the streets of Ancoats, the area Sebald himself describes in his dark introduction to his tale of Ferber, an area full by then of Indian fabric-making shops, as well as general semi-dereliction and a social security building. I could sit aimlessly in, for instance, a tacky fish and chip shop or McDonald's, drinking coffee. In those days there were no Caffineros. I would walk and walk, believing my exhaustion and listlessness was caused by anxiety and depression. Allegedly, as it slightly was, but only as a secondary, I stress, not primary feeling. You could see now I'm coming out of sort of mock Sebaldian style into direct self-narrative. About half the week I worked in a gay nightclub where too I would cycle, forcing my feet to propel the pedals because I'd been told I only had anxiety, quotes. On some occasions I remember cycling from Didsbury to the city centre some 6 to 7 miles and then working 5 hours and then cycling back 2 miles home and strangely stopping for comfort food at a surreal cafe for lorry drivers where they sold chips, all I could afford, before retiring to my digs, a house full of 4 dental students, 2 unpleasant, 1 indifferent to me, and 1 who withstood peer pressure and befriended me to an extent. Thank you, handsome Glenn. It was not until sometime in 1990 that I got a physiological diagnosis of post-viral fatigue syndrome by a neurologist at Manchester Royal Infirmary, and I knew that my, quotes, anxiety and, quotes, depression was mainly physical in etiology, most of the damage already having been done. An all too familiar ME, chronic fatigue syndrome story. After that, things changed a bit for the better. I volunteered at the Oxfam shop, I worked the till and did the ironing. I made friends with 2 lovely women I met through a co-counselling group. I got a lovely large flat. I managed to decorate myself, well, 1 or 2 rooms, somewhat spoiled by a denizen beneath me who sported a psychosomatic sneeze. Honestly, to minimise the invasiveness of which I resorted to painstakingly stuffing newspaper down the cracks in the floorboards. But I had my big flat and little telly and my records and my Amstrad old computer. Working in Oxfam gave me a realisable with me purpose, and I settled down for a few months until I got iller again and sensibly, in retrospect, from now, returned to Liverpool gradually and got my new flat in the bohemian garden of my area of Liverpool, where the illuminated cafe and the amorous cat bookshop and other quiet joys reside. So this is not as abject in the end anyway a story as in Sebald's Max Ferber narrative, nor am I trying to compare myself to the horrors he went through. I came through and arrived at one of my true spiritual homes, my current flat and area. Am I glad I did that journey? I certainly got most of the proving myself out of the psychological picture of myself. I gradually began to live, or anyway, with my physical limitations, I got garnered many friends, Liverpool being an easier city, a friendly city to make friends with than in Manchester. But I've been self-marginalised amongst Manchester's dark, satanic mills.